Hello again, everybody. I hope you're enjoying today's Insights Tech Showcase so far. We have our last session here of today, and with me I have Carrie from InfoTools and Harmoni. Before I hand it on over, I just want to remind you about that Q&A box. If you have any questions, drop them there, and we'll be sure to get to them at the end. But now I will hand it on over to our speaker.
Great. Thank you so much, Bridget. And it's really nice to be able to join you today. So we're going to talk a little bit about getting your team and your brand tracking in the right direction. Now, a specific day does stand out for me on this topic in my career. I was a research manager at one of the largest telecommunication companies in South Africa, and we were looking to break into the Nigerian market. We were doing lots of research. The field work had just concluded on a big project, and so my agency partner was busy combining data, putting the decks together. We were going to have an amazing presentation the following week. Well, everything was going smoothly until I received a phone call from one of the senior stakeholders who knew about the study and requested some key metrics for an important meeting that same day. And I felt pretty stuck and not really sure how I was going to get access or get a hold of that data for this individual. Now, my colleague probably saw the panic look on my face, and luckily he reminded me that we had installed a platform that would allow us to analyze the data ourselves. And he was able to acquire the actual cleaned data file. So we sat down, we uploaded it, we shaped it, we made sure we had some really great crosstabs, filtered, some analysis, and it was all ready to go within 45 minutes. Now, have you ever found yourself in a similar situation? And maybe it wasn't that you needed a super urgent question answered, within the day, but certainly that's happened to me more than once. So maybe that was your situation, but maybe it's organizational changes and new stakeholders are asking different questions of the data, or the competitive landscape has changed and strategy needs to pivot, or right, think of all of the ors. And I can tell you that day, the Harmoni platform was my hero. Now, that was 26 years ago, and I now work for InfoTools, who developed that Harmoni platform. Now I'm based in the US, and I'm helping clients and agencies implement the platform for their own use. Harmoni has certainly evolved from the early desktop installation that I was using that day to an online and cloud-based platform, and with way more powerful analytics and some new AI capabilities. So that's what I want to share with you today. First of all, Harmoni has basically three components. There are predefined reports and dashboards. Dashboards are, common to much of what we do. We want to be able to share information. Sometimes it's only the key topics. Sometimes it's limited to a certain number of filters. But this allows us to democratize the data to a wider audience. But the analysis tool, which is what I used that day, was the data all put together in the platform. And of course, what that allows for is my analysts, the research team, in fact, I ended up sharing it with my agency partners. We could all collaborate on specific answers to even deeper dive questions. And of course, a data hub. So imagine that there are several projects, or those projects, people also want to have access to reports or questionnaires or other aspects of that survey that will enhance their ability to contextualize insights. So those three components, and I'm going to demo basically the two, the defined reports and the analysis tool for you today. Now, it's probably no surprise that our clients do find a lot of benefit in Harmoni, as I did as a client. Once the project is set up, for instance, in the platform, this is especially nice with a tracking study, then there's a lot more time savings, because updating it with a wave means it updates the entire setup, all of the custom views you've created, and a lot of time savings from that perspective. And in my example, a quick, what would have taken maybe hours, maybe even days to get access to the data, I had within minutes. And that's a huge benefit. What that kind of did too, especially for my team, is it certainly enhanced our profile amongst our business partners. They could see that we could provide quick answers to questions and be insightful at that. And then, of course, because the study was in the platform, we really learned that we could go back and remine data based on new things we were learning. So there was quite a lot of benefit that we gained. Now, I'm going to share with you, I'm going to go to the platform now and share with you a fictional electronics company called Phonics, and their fictional brand health tracking data. Of course, this is an example of dashboards that are pre-built and in use. Of course, any of the branding that's needed for a client or for any of the reports can be, branded with any client collateral and all of the rest. So you can see there's maybe some common navigational highlights down here at the bottom, and each of these lead to a separate page. So if we want to look, first of all, for instance, at a brand scorecard, and let's say we're the managers of brand A. Of course, we would set this up where our scorecard is front and center. We could see our awareness metrics, things about the brand funnel, or some of the items of the imagery of our brand. Now, since this is actually based on the raw data, we can have the significance testing is in place. We can see that this is a point-in-time study. Right now, we're looking at May. I'll show you later where we can integrate the trends for all of the data that's in the study. But here in May 2023, our significant tests on our brand imagery seem to be softening this month. And it's related to the SIG testing is, in this case, being referenced against the prior month. So this might be a scorecard where we get a little concerned about that brand imagery, and maybe we want to dive in a bit deeper. We can also look at some of these awareness metrics in this case, or the brand funnel metrics on other pages. So let's take a look at awareness and go, for instance, within a given market. Now, something I didn't point out on the first page is that users can establish a number of filters that could either be set up based on whether it's regional or categorical, et cetera. I'm using smartphone data coming from the US, and that's the filter that I've selected for this. So here we are, brand A, not necessarily a leader when it comes to the aided awareness or even other awareness metrics, but kind of good to know where we stand. And of course, again, that's a point-in-time study. But if I wanted to take a look something more about the trend related to my brand, I can go into a trended view. And in this case, take a look at awareness. This is my total unaided brand awareness. And I have a lot of data here that I can draw from. So I can also zoom in to see the data more closely. I can choose perhaps a different metric on the page. So lots of different options to take a user who doesn't have to be expert in the data through kind of the steps of still getting a customized version of what they want. So I'm going to go ahead, zoom in here. And of course, we notice that brand E, brand H, and they're ahead of the pack. They're way up there. And we're kind of down in the middle of the pack. So what I might do is try to focus or even hide some of these other brands, push them out of the way. Notice I'm just simply customizing the view. And now I can take a look more closely at that whole pack of brands in terms of how they report on total unaided brand awareness. Now, once I've customized a view, I can always add it to what we call a story. Think about this as a saved view. And of course, the next time we get data, not only does my data update, my dashboards update, but all of my stories also update. So clicking and adding it to a new story is an easy enough thing to do. And I'll show you what a story would look like. I'm going to zoom back out and again, kind of follow that same thinking. Now, how is my brand doing in terms of brand funnel? And I want to, in this case, look at my brand across the markets. So let me pop that over. I'm going to push that. I think I still want to look at, no, I think I'm going to stick with global filters off so I can see all my markets. And here I can see the US, my sample size, France, the sample size. And again, kind of remembering that my reference is May versus April. But, I'd actually like to see, for instance, how I fare on this brand based on, let's say, a year ago. So I can also make changes to that reference. I'm going to zoom in really easily. You can see there's a lot of ways to modify or change the data. But in this case, I'm going to use my reference feature and change it. Actually, it was 1, change it to 12. And what that does now is it will show me that actually the reference is referencing a year ago. So I can make those adjustments, save that to a story, add it to something new, and be able to move on with my analysis. So of interest, I just clicked on that brand awareness. I can also go up to we'll just do this here. So here's my brand imagery. And this is kind of a cool chart to be able to see a bead chart, a number of the key brands and how they plot across the different brand imagery. So recommended by dealers and experts. We can kind of see here, although brand A is looking good, actually brand D is still a leader in that area. Brand E is also really strong in terms of setting the leads. We can see that those brand leaders are also coming through in this data. Now, there's also the ability to, for instance, look at communication or advertising awareness through this particular data set. So in this, what we're showing is recognition or brand linkage or brand link ratio. This will take me through any of the diagnostics of the ad that I'm interested in. Now, a lot of the filtering is also done through what's called our little select option. And I can take a look at a different ad, see what those diagnostics are, try to understand, which of these ads is maybe addressing any of the perhaps awareness metrics that I'm working with, or any of those other things that I'm interested in seeing. Now, being able to then, once I've got a story, and I'm going to take you over to my story view, because I've already developed one, and I called this my brand A analysis. Let me show you what I had done. So because I was going through, I was able to add to a story. I now have a number of different views, all related to me trying to analyze what's going on with my brand. And each view is as I specifically saved it. So I can go through here, take a look at this. And of course, a story can also be shared with other users within the system. It can be exported to PowerPoint, in which case, let me show you just a quick example of a export. For instance, you would get exported to a report template. You'd be able to kind of see the data. The data goes from Harmony out to PowerPoint in live data format. So as you would need to maybe make changes or change visualization, it could be saved as a zoomed in view or saved otherwise. So just a really handy way to get the data straight back out to other sources. Now, if that's not enough for me to kind of dig into, I also have access to the analysis tool, the entire project tree. And those of you familiar with crosstabs, many of us are, as we're going through all of the work that we do with data. So you could simply see dragging into an across, dragging into a down. There's ways to add filters. So I won't go through that. But what I do want to share is a more advanced feature of the data, which we've built in using Bayesian statistics as our discover tool. So what it's based on is going through a wide set of descriptor data that I nominate and trying to understand something about a section of the population that I'm interested in viewing. So I've already set up some descriptors. Here are my different descriptors. I'm using some descriptors that are demographic, brand imagery, or I could set up other descriptors that contain everything. And I'm interested in seeing some of the profile work that we've done on segments. So I want to understand this brand health tracking data. I want to look at brand A, but I want to do so through the lens of my different personas. So I'm going to take my segments and drag them into Discover. So what will happen now is this is where the Bayesian statistics comes in. It populates, goes through all of the list of descriptors that I've collected. And again, this was gender, age groups, as well as some of the imagery. Now, I could decide to deselect all of the other brands' imagery and just simply focus specifically on how these personas view our brand's imagery. And when I look at this, I can see that this group, the target group here in orange, these expert guided optimizers, they seem to like us. They trust us as a brand. They think we're innovative, etc. I can also see that we tend to over-index with this younger age group. And if I were to scroll further down, you could see then ways, parts of the descriptors where I'm least likely to be described as. And that looks like a pretty solid persona that we could go after or continue to strengthen. But let's look further over to the right, which the further we get to the right, the least like our target group they are. Let me choose Choiceful Explorer, for instance, and make them the target group. And of course, what I'm now seeing is that they're a very different group. They think we're good value, but there's a lot that they soften on in terms of other metrics. So thinking about my strategy, what do I do to win them over? So we start to then bring our experience to the data so we can begin to look at different strategies. That's just a really quick example. Something else that I really like to do in Harmoni is to take advantage of fair share analysis. So especially when it comes to imagery, we know the big brands get a lot of strong attribute mentions, but what about the smaller brands? Well, when I pick a couple of brands and use fair share, which is another, I guess we would also think of this as double indexing. So this is the incidence that appears for the brand. Then the fair share percentages get applied, which takes out of the equation the size of the actual brand. Then what we could do is plot the fair share differences. So now for brand A, I can see that by just a quick rank, I can see that we really have more than our fair share of recommendations by dealers and experts. And in the cell phone industry, that really means a lot to have dealers recommend a certain product. So I can also visualize this. Sometimes this is a really cool way to get visualization. Just a couple of amazing analytic tools that we've implemented into Harmoni. As well, we also have an AI interface. So this is using some of the most worrying topics or a global advisor data that's done through Ipsos. Just a quick example of how we can get to data. So if I wanted to, for instance, see a trend of some of this data, what worries the world, I can create an analysis. I can go to my story of that analysis. And this is a lot of data. It would take a while to kind of figure my way through this, but I can use Chat Harmoni, integrating Chat GPT and eventually Ipsos Facto. And it's going through the actual table and generating insights. So there we go. We have some insights that were generated. We can see that. But what if I want to boil it down to top 3? And ask it again. So we can query the data this way. We're querying within an analytical view. And this could be really big table, nested tables, anything like that. So I've come down to a couple of things. I copy that over to my comments. I can save that. And then when I export to PowerPoint, for instance, then I'm able to see those in my comment field. Just a few things. I need to pause here and hopefully leave a few minutes or seconds for questions.
Hi, thank you so much. We are coming up on time, but I would love to squeeze in a question here before we wrap up. Can you combine multiple data sources?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Right now, we could combine things with norms, sales data, GRPs, TRPs as it relates to advertising measures, So there's ways to integrate social data as well. But yes, there's certainly more than just survey data that Harmoni can handle. But thank you for that question.
Wonderful, thank you. Unfortunately, we are out of time for today. Just a reminder to all of our attendees that the sessions from today will be available to watch on demand. And for those of you that are joining us live, if you're interested in getting in touch with Carrie's team, you can scroll down, click that book time with me button, and it'll take you directly to a page to book time with her team. But with that being said, Carrie, I want to give you a big thank you for being here with us today, and a thank you to our attendees. I hope that everyone has a wonderful Friday.
It's a great pleasure. Thanks, Bridget. Take care.